A fairly calm tropics, for the time being at least. Tonight's tropical weather bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical weather bulletin for April 24th. As mentioned, the tropics are quiet today, with only a few thunderstorms scattered across the whole tropical region, and not much else going on besides. We've had 16 storms so far this year, but this kind of activity in April is expected. It is one of the quietest months of the year. In the Atlantic, 38 days until hurricane season begins. There's no areas of interest, but a cool little feature there moving off the coast of the United States, the Gulf Coast of Texas. Severe weather earlier on, now mainly over the Gulf of Mexico, a mesoscale system. In the South Pacific, we do have a 20% area of interest designated for the late part of the forecast period near New Caledonia and south of there. Around Australia, a few thunderstorms brewing off the coast of Queensland, but generally it's all out at sea towards Papua New Guinea and the eastern extremes of Indonesia. Over the Indian Ocean itself, the tropics are fairly quiet. Big gaps there in the cloud, and in the tropical zone more towards the equator actually, the doldrums there blowing up a few bits of convection here and there, but nothing organised or expected to become a tropical cyclone in the next 7 days. So no areas of interest to talk about at all in that area, and I'll just wait for the next slide to load. It is very quiet. Satellite imagery then looks like this. First of all, last 24 hours, where are the hot spots? Look out for the red zones, mainly across the rainforests of Central Africa, have been the areas that have received the highest amounts of precipitation over that time, and indeed in its highest concentrations and quick rainfall, which can produce flash flooding. Elsewhere, really not much going on at all. Look at the wide shot, you can still see actually the remnants of Sanvu and some convection blowing up again from it throughout the course of this morning local time into the early hours there, and you can see on our floaters, which are still active as well. This system may not have fully given up, although the center is quite difficult to establish if it even has one. Convection blowing up again, maybe it's something to keep an eye on for a potential second life, but if it does have one, it would be extremely short-lived and it would stay very weak. We don't foresee it becoming a tropical storm again, and its track, if it does still remain traceable over the next few days, will keep it far south, and it shouldn't be a threat to Guam at all. It should pass safely towards the south. So apart from that, not much else to look at, nothing in the tropics, so we'll just look at the United States Gulf Coast area here, that big severe weather system that moved off the coast of Texas earlier today, and there it is on radar in all of its glory, looking very fascinating. And just another feature here which we're about to show there in southern China, a few storms and showers moving across the southern province there towards the Hong Kong region. Sea surface temperatures looking good in the eastern Pacific, and they really are on their way up here in this basin, over 30 degrees already in a few spots there in the east and East Pacific. The Gulf, the Loop Current and the Gulf Stream looking very good there. Temperatures already increasing above 26 degrees as far north as the border with North Carolina offshore. And in the Indian Ocean, extremely warm waters in the lower latitudes, well above 30 degrees Celsius, 32 there in parts of the Bay of Bengal and extending northwards. And sea surface temperatures receding now in the southwest Indian Ocean, as you would expect. Only about 27 degrees in Mauritius and La Réunion. Madagascar is still quite hot in the northwestern part, but northeast is getting noticeably cooler. Around the west coast of Australia, those temperatures are really falling off. They just couldn't hold on any longer after Ilsa started that drop there. And on the east coast, temperatures are starting to decrease there as well. Only one or two spots of 30 now in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and the 30-degree isotherms are starting to recede around the Solomon Islands and north of Fiji as well. Still a few spots there, and temperatures good still as far as New Caledonia, but they are on their way down. Western Pacific is on its way up, of course. 30 degrees Celsius waters extending all around the Philippine Islands, except the northern parts, of course, but it is above average over there in the Philippine Sea and West Pacific. Look towards the east, the El Nino effect possibly building in here, with well above average sea surface temperatures in those areas that we look for those signs. Around the Galapagos Islands towards Peru, extremely high sea surface temperature anomalies. Eastern Pacific warm near the Mexico coast, but still noticeably below average out at sea between Mexico and Hawaii, which could be a detriment to the season. Oceanic heat content, still quite a lot of it there in the South Pacific, but of quite low latitudes, and in the Northern Hemisphere you can see in the Eastern Pacific already building up pretty good, well ahead of where it was last season, even at peak. And in the Western Pacific, still good amounts there extending from Guam to the Philippines, and that is only expected to build. GFS computer model forecast for the next 5 days. This is what we're looking at depicted on this forecast run. And we are seeing increasing consensus from all models now that there will be a cyclone of some description south of New Caledonia next week, or this weekend maybe, but will it be tropical or will it remain extratropical? That will be the big question. It's still odds against that it will become a tropical cyclone, so that's why our chances remain low, but it is becoming increasingly likely that it will be a cyclonic system, just not with the tropical features. It will eventually form just south of New Caledonia around about day 4 or 5, and it could be very close to the land and indeed could cause some significant rainfall. But if it did form, we are expecting that the lion's share of the rainfall will be on the southern side of the storm, and as such we're expecting those high rainfall amounts up to 300 millimeters to remain well offshore. In New Caledonia itself, their projected rainfall amounts up to 3 inches, that's getting towards 80 millimeters, and on Vanuatu maximums of around 50 to 60 millimeters of rainfall in that 7-day period through the 30th of April. Fiji as well, getting very small amounts of rain there, and further north pretty seasonal amounts. Nothing else in the short range, so we'll go to the medium range, day 5 to 10. This is what we're expecting will continue with that system. A very broad system, still got some gale force winds, could go on to affect the islands of New Zealand with tropical storm force winds across the whole peninsula, and you can see there that it will become extremely broad later on, but then just get completely ripped apart and get replaced with another system behind it in the Tasman Sea. So could be a little bit windy down there in the next week or two, but nothing really out of the ordinary. You can find the Force 13 merch store by scanning the barcode and take a look at all of our usual items, including our full season and individual storm animations on request. We also have our Still Waiting for Hode t-shirt for those who just can't get over the fact that we've been waiting for over nearly 4 years for that storm. And we're not going to see it anytime soon. The extended range here, Silly Range, day 10 to 16, looking out for 2 potential brief spin-up cyclones in the South Indian Ocean. These things can happen in the very low latitudes in the very late season, and you can see those 2 systems forming quite close to each other at first and then eventually contrary motion apart from each other, especially that eastern system which spreads off towards the east and affects the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia. But none of those scenarios are particularly likely. You can discuss that and anything to do with the tropics and weather on our Discord server, discord.gg/force13 for tropical weather chat, and much more besides. Well, what happened on this day? This is probably the most exciting part about today's bulletin. It was Cyclone Monica on April 24th, 2006, reminding us all that late season cyclones can be extremely powerful and destructive. Cyclone Monica with at least 180 mile per hour winds and a central pressure of below 900 millibars. Just how strong was it? Who knows? No one will know, I don't think. We have it pegged at 897 millibars. A category 5 landfall it would about to make on the top end of Australia, obliterating remote communities in that area. We also had Tropical Depression 2B, which was about to become Cyclone Mala in the Bay of Bengal and would eventually affect Myanmar. Well, back to today, and we are unclassified. There's no alert code in effect, so it's quiet. Arlene is the first name in the Atlantic this year. In the Eastern Pacific, it's Adrian, and in the Central Pacific, we are indeed still waiting for Hone. 16 storms so far this year around the world. Sanvu was the last one in the Western Pacific just a few days ago. Moa is next up. In the North Indian Ocean, we are looking out for the first named storm there as well. It's Mocha. It has been a little while since the North Indian Ocean storm now, but I'm sure we'll see something fairly soon. In the Australian region, the next name is Jasper, Southwest Indian Ocean, Fabienne, and in the South Pacific, it's Lola. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow night.